The deep narcissist doesn't fall in love, he evaluates. From the very beginning, he's scanning the room, scanning you, not for love, but for access, for leverage, for emotional architecture. He watches how you smile, how you respond to silence, how you speak about your childhood, your past wounds, your self-doubt. He's not moved by your vulnerability. He's building a map of your soul, because he's not here to build love, he's here to build control. Thomas Erikson describes how any behavioral profile can host a narcissist. Not all narcissists look the same. Some are dominant and loud red profiles, using aggression, control, and intimidation. Others are charming, bright, enthusiastic, yellow profiles, using charisma, humor, and seduction to disarm you. Then come the blue types, analytical, cold, distant. They use logic to invalidate your feelings and make you doubt your memory. And finally, the green ones, passive, quiet, avoidant, who manipulate through withdrawal, guilt, and silence. The mask changes, the method shifts, but the root is always the same. Control. Emotional control over you and you. You don't see it coming because he doesn't enter like a storm. He enters like safety. He listens, he reflects. He gives you the illusion of being understood. He mirrors your values, your wounds, your deepest fears. And suddenly, it feels like you found a soulmate. Someone who truly gets you, who doesn't flinch when you're intense, who sees your depth and calls it beautiful. But that's not love, that's strategy. He learns what makes you feel chosen, then gives it to you in doses just enough to build trust. And once that trust is solid, he begins to pull away. Not in a violent way, in subtle, measured ways. He texts less. He's less affectionate. He's distracted, unavailable, cold, but only sometimes. Just enough to make you question yourself. Just enough to keep you chasing the version of him he showed you at the start. Because that version wasn't real. It was bait. You begin to think it's your fault. You try harder, you give more. You apologize when you haven't done anything wrong. You start walking on eggshells not because he asked you to, but because his silence is now louder than any argument. You remember how connected you felt before, and you want it back, so you shrink, you soften, you bend, and he watches, not with empathy, with calculation. Thomas Erikson calls this emotional inversion. When you give the most right, when they've already started withdrawing, because they know, the more you invest, the more you'll tolerate, the more you excuse, the more you'll stay, and they exploit it. They make you work to earn back the warmth they gave you freely at first. That's the trick. The love bomb becomes emotional starvation. And your craving for their affection becomes your prison. You don't see this as manipulation. You see it as your failure. You wonder what changed. You ask yourself if you're too much, too sensitive, too emotional. But it was never about you. It was about control. You were selected not because you're weak, but because you're strong, empathic, open, capable of deep connection. And the narcissist knows he can't offer that. So instead, he copies it just long enough to hook you. And once he has you, he starts to break you. Slowly, quietly, strategically, until you no longer trust your own perception. And that's the danger of a deep narcissist. Not what he says, but what he withdraws. Not what he does, but what he stops doing. He doesn't need to scream to destroy you. He just needs to make you question what used to feel like love. Because once you doubt your own reality, you'll do anything to get clarity. And he holds it hostage. By the time you realize what's happening, you've already internalized the lie. That if you were just a little easier, a little quieter, a little more patient, maybe he'd come back to the man he was in the beginning. But he won't, because that man never existed. Asterisk, asterisk, it doesn't break all at once. That's the genius of it. The narcissist doesn't disappear overnight. He fades, slowly. He takes one step back and waits to see if you'll notice. You do, but you don't say anything, because you don't want to seem needy. Then he takes another step, a colder text, less eye contact, fewer compliments. And you begin to feel it in your body before your mind can explain it. A shift, a drop, a quiet ache that wasn't there before. And yet, you say nothing. Because you still remember who he was at the beginning. You remember the warmth, the attention, the way he looked at you like you were the only thing that made sense in his world, and so you hold on to that memory like a lifeline. That's how the cycle begins. It's not abuse in the way most people imagine. It's not shouting, it's not name-calling, it's absence. A carefully crafted emotional void that he controls. One day, he gives you tenderness again. You feel a spark. You think, there it is, he's still here. But the next day, it's gone. And you're left wondering what you did wrong. Why the warmth only comes in fragments. Why love now feels like a test you're always failing. Thomas Erikson explains that this pattern isn't random, it's deliberate. The narcissist creates inconsistency so that your nervous system stays hooked. It's psychological conditioning. He rewards you with affection when you're quiet, when you don't question him, when you smile through the pain. But if you express hurt, if you need clarity, if you ask where the love went, he punishes you. Not always with rage, usually with distance, disinterest, dismissal. The message is always the same. I'm only safe when you don't need anything. So, you stop needing, or at least, you pretend to. You begin to edit yourself, your tone, your expression, even your body language so you don't trigger his withdrawal. And in doing that, you disappear. Not from his life, but from your own. You become someone who is constantly managing his moods, scanning for signs, measuring every word. You become someone who loves quietly, cautiously, carefully. But that isn't love. That's survival. By the time you realize how much you've changed, you're already emotionally dependent, because your body still remembers what it felt like in the beginning, and so you stay. Not because it's good now, but because it was good once. And your mind is desperately trying to recreate it. You tell yourself, if I'm more patient, if I love him better, maybe it will go back to how it was. But it won't, because he's not trying to build connection. He's managing control. The less you ask, the more he gives, but only temporarily. Just enough to keep you hooked. You may start to feel anxious all the time. You start walking on eggshells. You justify his mood swings. You cover for him when people ask how you're doing. You hide your pain, even from yourself. Because if you stop pretending everything's okay, you'll have to face the truth. And the truth is unbearable. That the love you thought you had was never real. It was a strategy, a tactic, a carefully designed illusion. That's what makes this kind of abuse so devastating. It's not the pain, it's the confusion. It's not knowing what's real anymore. It's doubting your instincts. It's blaming yourself for being hurt. It's feeling like you're losing your mind because no one else sees it, because there are no bruises, no evidence, just a slow fading of your voice, your light, your boundaries, and while you're shrinking, he's thriving. Because now he knows you'll stay. Now he knows he can vanish emotionally and still have access to you. And the moment you stop resisting, stop asking, stop expecting, that's the moment he wins. Not because you're weak, but because you've been conditioned to believe that love should hurt, that love requires sacrifice, that your pain is the price for connection, but it's not. And someday, you'll look back and realize that nothing you did deserved this, that nothing you said justified the silence, that your need for clarity, affection, and emotional presence was not a flaw. It was evidence that you were still alive inside, still fighting, still hoping. And that is what he feared most. There's a moment, subtle, quiet, when something inside you stops breaking, not because the pain is gone, but because the illusion finally cracks. You begin to see it, not in anger, not in chaos, but in stillness. You look at him and realize, he's not mysterious, he's predictable. You feel the silence and know it's not peace, it's punishment. You notice the coldness and finally understand it's not a phase, it's a pattern. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. This is where the real shift begins. You don't raise your voice, you don't beg him to change. You stop playing the role. You stop apologizing for needing clarity. You stop trying to win back a version of him that was never real. You detach, not with hatred, but with wisdom. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you've started caring about yourself. Thomas Erikson explains that what narcissists fear most is not confrontation, it's indifference. It's your calm. It's your silence, not the silence they control, but the silence that comes when you no longer need them to explain, to validate, to approve. That's when they lose power. When you stop trying to be understood by someone who is never listening, when you stop chasing closure from someone who never gave you answers, when you stop being available, they don't expect that. They expect the emotional chaos, the breakdowns, the guilt, the endless forgiveness. But when you no longer give them the drama, when you walk away without making a scene, when you draw a line and don't explain it, they panic. Not always outwardly. Sometimes they pretend not to care. Sometimes they act like you are nothing. But inside they feel the vacuum, because they weren't feeding off your love. They were feeding off your confusion, and now there's nothing left to confuse. You might still miss him. You might still grieve the version of him that made you feel alive. That's normal. You were emotionally conditioned to link pain with love. But now you're waking up, and that awakening is slow, painful, and sacred. You start to realize that love is not supposed to feel like survival. That attention is not supposed to be earned through silence. That connection is not supposed to cost you your self-respect. You stop explaining yourself to people who never made space for your voice. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You start choosing peace over potential, clarity over chemistry, consistency over charm. You stop asking why he didn't choose you, and start asking why you kept choosing someone who made you feel unsafe in your own skin. This is the rebirth. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep, quiet, and irreversible. He may come back. They always do. But when he does, something in you will be different. The same words won't land the same. The same silences won't paralyze you. The same manipulation won't hook you. Because now you know. The moment you stopped trying to win him back, you started winning yourself. And no narcissist can survive in a space where confusion has been replaced with clarity, where fear has been replaced with boundaries, where silence is no longer your prison but your protection. He didn't destroy you, he revealed you, and now, you're free.